we have now Minister Macron backstage and Grainne McCarthy from the Wall Street Journal for a conversation also with you. We'll open to the room. So with no further ado, Emmanuel Macron, please join me on stage, and Grainne McCarthy. So I'm very jealous because I've seen something happening at the Oscars. So do you mind that we try something like this? You know, I always wanted to do that. Awesome. Thank you very much. So please, Emmanuel here, and Grainne, where would you like to sit? Well, okay.
Up to you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. Hello, everybody.
We're delighted that you join us today, and we will start with a few questions and then open to room. So if you have some questions, please think about them. Just as we start, we have a T-shirt I'd like to show you that maybe my team can put up if it's available. So this is a T-shirt that was produced last year after Arnaud Montebourg. So Arnaud Montebourg came last year, and I'm not sure that's the exact quote, to be fair, but we need to slow down innovation to protect the old business, which was on a conversation with Uber. And that got, so we didn't create this was on the internet everywhere. And so we thought it was a good, we're so glad you're coming. What do you think about the Uber situation here in France with given the conversations that was around this T-shirt?
So to be clear about the French momentum, we are accelerating, just to answer the question. It's not a slowdown phase. So the key question for us today is how to accelerate, how to accompany new businesses. I mean, I have a constant obsession, which is when I look at the CAC 40, you know the main 40 companies in France, most of them were here, part of the CAC 40, 30 years ago. When I compare with the NASDAQ or some other indexes, I mean, the difference is crazy. So my job is just to help, I don't know them by definition, but just to be sure that in the coming years, we are creating the CAC 40 in 10 years. And my strong willingness is to have thousands of new companies, but I mean, big and large caps to be created here in this country to replace the existing one and not to protect these ones.
So you don't want to protect the old?
No. And I think that's a big mistake. Our role, my job, is not to protect the existing businesses, and it's not to protect the existing jobs. Our job is to protect people, but to allow them to take risks. And I mean, in the current globalization, what we have to do is to take more risks, to be more innovative. And France is already innovative, much more than a lot of people think today, and even a lot of French people. But when you look basically at the innovation, at the entrepreneurship in this country, I mean, it's moving, it's increasing like crazy. But what we have to do now is to be proud about that and to push and to help them to go further and faster. But my job today is to be sure that we will create big champions for this country and they will replace the existing ones.
The other thing that probably, I'm sorry to ask one more question, it's related to your predecessor. The other thing that probably many people in this room think about when they think about President François Hollande's government's relationship with the tech community or decisions around tech was the decision to intervene in the Yahoo acquisition of Dailymotion, and for a company that is seen as a very successful French tech company. So following on from what you're saying about innovation, I mean, how much of your job, since you've been in the job since August, is to try and unwind some of that and attack what maybe you and others perceive as an image problem surrounding France and innovation and risk-taking and entrepreneurship?
I mean, first, on the specific item you mentioned, I mean, President Hollande didn't intervene himself. I mean, I just don't want to
I think it's clear
confusion.
that Mr. Montebourg did.
Okay, fine. And on this specific point, I think that our role is not to interfere in the day-to-day business. And we are shareholder of Orange, but we are not in a situation to tell them and to task them, to sell to somebody or somebody else one of the businesses. The key point is what is good for this business and how it can create more jobs. So for innovation, I think we did a lot of things. First, the French Tech. I've been here. La French Tech is just the label, the flagship of this ecosystem. But it's important because it's already here. We have to promote. My view is that the government is not the one who will innovate or replace people to innovate. That's crazy. That's true that our tradition in this country was basically to be extremely present in the economy. And we have a role to play to frame some trends, to help. But the key point is how to recognize and to facilitate the day-to-day life of entrepreneurs, and especially for the tech community in this country. So French Tech, for me, is a key initiative to push these different ecosystems, to push startups, because they create jobs here, they innovate, they are changing life. And I'm very proud to see young people creating new jobs and changing day-to-day life in this country.
So even if they sell the company to an American one, that's no problem. Like the Daily Motion thing.
We need an exit. So today we have to be pragmatic. If you have smart US company ready basically to buy the startups,
that's fine.
But they are free. They created the startups. It's not mine. But I want them. My preference is to have them working here, innovating here, in order to push the country, because I think it's good for the country, and you have positive side effects for the rest of the people. But when you look at the situation today in France, you have the first generation of startups who succeeded. And perhaps they were around today or the day before, Xavier Niel, Mr. Grandjean, Mr. Simoncini, and they reinvest. And we all have to thank them for the fact that they reinvest in the country. And it's very important because they are one of the key parts of this ecosystem.
Emmanuel, you obviously follow the school, the college that Xavier Niel has launched, 42. And so I was there 2 days ago. I was so impressed. You see those screens lined up 24/7, and it's engineers that get trained there. And there are two things that are striking for me. One, half of them, I heard, or he says, don't have a baccalaureate. And the other thing which strikes me is that Xavier Niel finances this entirely himself on his own money. So it's basically an entrepreneur substituting himself to the education system. How do you support this or like this? Or
I don't think that's a substitution, because that's something very innovative. It's different for the classical standards. And I think that, it's fine, it's great to have this kind of initiatives. Having, an important government, a big government, an American would say, is not something which should replace all the private initiatives. And it's important to have, people and successful people deciding to reinvest in their country and helping people to create this ecosystem and to teach them and to train them in order to succeed. And I think, I'm very happy about this initiative because
that's awesome. Yep.
That's a great contribution. But for me, if we go, till the end of the argumentation, because you're right, today, when you look at the exit for a lot of these startups, the first, for me, the main purpose is to be bigger and bigger. And one of the key driver for these young startups and for me to help them, and for the country itself, I would say, is to think big. We have to think big, bigger and bigger. And I don't want a country completely reluctant to innovation, to movement, to acceleration. That's exactly the opposite. So that's the first one. We have to help them to grow. The second point is that we have to help them and to help the investors, basically, to find an exit. And what we will do is to push as well a lot of French corporates to work with them and, to be in a situation to buy them when they are ready. Because it's not normal to just have US companies buying young French startups. And the third point is as well to favor, venture capitalists, corporate ventures, and to favor as well the emergence of an actual tech market. And internet is an important component of this market. But if we want an actual exit, we need a market. We need a tech market.
And business angels too?
And sure, we've just passed in the law a new modification. And I've just presented yesterday a new law which will be submitted to the Parliament with a series of measures favoring business angels, start-uppers, with precisely a series of tax incentives.
Like what? Is there something really, like you don't, like can we deduct it from wealth tax, for example?
Yep, and you can deduct from the corporates the tax you have today when you give your key people basically shares of your corporates.
You spoke about jobs and you want startups and tech companies to create jobs in France. Your law that you presented yesterday, how is that going to make it easier for them to do that? Because again, France has partly an image problem, but it's also a reality that it is more difficult to do things like hiring and firing in France.
Look, first, when you look at how to create a startup and you compare the actual figures, it's much more easy in France than in a lot of countries. Look at the OECD and the World Bank stats. That's very impressive, but France is pretty well ranked. So it's much more easy than people think. Second point, when you speak about labor market, today, what we want to do is to provide more flexibility through, corporate or branch agreements and discussions. The law is not the right place to schedule and to frame everything. So we want definitely to have more flexibility and more dialogue at the branch and the corporate level. Third, what we want to do is to provide more visibility in case, basically, of slowdown, to allow precisely corporates to readapt themselves and negotiate new conditions. And when they have basically litigations with the people that have just sacked, to have more visibility and to go faster, especially through what we call the prud'homme in France, which is an important reform. So I think we have a series of specific reforms on the labor market which go into that direction in order to provide more visibility, more simplicity, and to reassure, to put more confidence in this market. But for me, the key point is about culture. It's a state of mind. It's exactly what you mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, is how we can promote innovators, how we can facilitate the jobs, how we can help them on a day-to-day basis and not to block them. And I agree with you. We conveyed a lot of negative message to say we are protecting the old business. We are protecting through over-regulation in a certain way. People would just want to innovate. And that's why, just to provide just a few illustrations. In e-education, we want to go further, but we want to facilitate newcomers, new startups, and you have a lot of great startups in this sector in France, because, they won't push basically our education system, which is largely public, to be more innovative himself and to be more efficient. We will do the same on the transport businesses. We will do the same on a series of other businesses. And where they can create jobs for young people, sometimes without a lot of skills, but it's great. It's both fair and efficient.
Quick follow-up, specifically on the transport business, how do you in the French government balance the sort of interests of the state? I'm thinking specifically about a very successful car-sharing company and very fast-growing car-sharing company called BlaBlaCar. That is apparently taking market share. It's certainly being felt quite significantly at the SNCF, which, also you think of French success, you think of the TGV. So how is that dynamic within the French government? Who is the champion here, or can they both be champions?
For sure. And we will create a third one, because what I want is to open the coach business, which is in this country completely blocked, because you have a series of authorization basically to get before opening a coach line, which is crazy when you think about that. And we will open this great business, because you have indeed BlaBlaCar and the car business and this kind of cooperative business. and they are very successful. We are very proud of them. They made beginning of this year, a 100 million operation, and it's a perfect illustration of the success. On the other side, you have indeed the train business, and I think it's part of our great technology, and they are adapting themselves as well. But if we want to stimulate them, if we want to go further, we have to allow new people to enter into new market, to create new jobs, and to innovate.
And you invest too, as the government in itself, you invest through BPI and in startups?
We have different pockets. We have BPI indeed, which invests in startups, in French tech, but in different startups. We created basically as well different structures and incentives with the crowdfunding structure. We took a law in order basically to facilitate the structure and to give a legal framework.
Make it easier? To make it
easier and more secure, because that's important for the consumer. We are pushing through BPI. They invested 300 million in specific pockets. They help as well the French tech in terms of communication to put people. We help through the different French tech hubs, the ecosystems of investors and entrepreneurs to go further, to work together. And you have public intervention as well at the regional level or the government level to help key people. And we organized an innovation, basically, competition, and we organized a series of selection with specific grants. And we have the government love money as well.
You have government love money.
Exactly, with small tickets for new startups. So you have a series of...
So wait, that's Bercy directly writing a check?
Yeah, you have people,
that's fine. What's your email address?
You have independent people supposed basically to assess the different projects. But for me, so you have all these different pockets. But the key point is to give the economic framework and to provide the culture and to push the innovators. And what we need is energy. And everywhere in this country, I see young people very happy, but so willing to innovate, to create. The key point is to help them. They are the good...
Keep them in France.
Sure.
Yes.
And help them in France to create business.
Because many of them leave.
But how do we
not so many when you look basically at the results. When you look at the recent successes in biotech, for instance, 2/3 of the recent listed biotech were French. So it's not just always about leaving the country to succeed. You can succeed in France, but you have to succeed more easily, and we have to speak more highly about these successes. I want to stop with the French bashing. I think that's a stupidity. I want, France celebrating.
No more French bashing. So if we focus on the positives, you have today, you're probably aware, Renaud Laplanche of Lending Club is going public.
Yeah.
$5 billion.
Yeah, that's great.
And use your micro. And
that's a great news.
He's a hero. It's unbelievable. It's one of the largest IPOs worldwide in tech this year, and it's a French guy in Silicon Valley. Do you think he could have done the same in Paris, or he should? Because he's based in San Francisco, he's a neighbor. How do we make the next global company? And he's one of the leaders of the sharing economy. But how do we make the next Google, the next Facebook, the next Uber, which might be BlaBlaCar, hopefully, we'll see, in Paris, based in Paris?
First, I'm very happy about this great news, and we are very proud, because I think that's a great success and recognition. Second, we had some success. It's possible to create such a business from France. Criteo is always a good example, even if they decided to list in another place, because we don't have the appropriate infrastructure and market infrastructure. That's why we want to promote that. Third, I think that when you listen to this kind of experience, they left the country because they didn't have the fair recognition of their job. And it was much more easy, basically, to see important CEOs in the Silicon Valley than in France. And that's not about tax, that's not about all this stuff. That's state of mind, and that's how people think. And I do think that in this country, it has to be much more easy for start-uppers to see ministers, to see administration, and to see the great CEOs. And I want clearly to have and I will organize a clear action beginning of next year with the key CEOs of this country to help young people and young startups, because when you have this direct access, when you can explain your projects, but you can be helped. I mean, we can facilitate your life, but not with money, but just to say, okay, Grainne, we will work with you. And I think that's this cultural part of the job, of the business. We have open minds. We have opened our doors. We have to open our structures. And I think that's one of the key points. And I would be very proud if people like Renaud or you would decide, except for family reasons, but to come back and to promote France, but to
what
decide,
do you say, Loic?
I mean, to go further here.
I would.
He's asking you a question now.
Now
That's a good pressure.
I would love to come. I love my country. My passport is French, and I'm proud of it. And I think I was having this debate actually at the UK embassy 2 days ago, because they were trying to explain how London was a fantastic place for tech and entrepreneurs, and it is. But I think there are a lot of things to change to make that shift happen. The problem we have is that the center is San Francisco. That's very difficult to change because everything is global, right? So you want to be at the center. You want to be able to raise funding. Peter Pham here, who is an investor, said 95% of the funds being raised or acquisitions happen between San Francisco and Palo Alto. That's very, very difficult to change.
No, you're right, but now I want Peter to invest here in Paris. I mean, he doesn't dare to share this idea with his partners today because probably it's too far-fetched. But I do think that Peter, who loves Paris, I mean, we have to facilitate his life here to help him to invest.
Can you? So actually, last year there were a lot of Silicon Valley investors watching this debate, and they were not super convinced. Can you help me convince them? Because there's one thing, we took them to Xavier's school. And I can tell you they were super impressed, and not only impressed, and I was really proud, because they were saying, we need to bring this to the US. We need to bring the same model as Xavier's school, 24/7, to the US. And that is like, I was, wow, for once, you know. So can you give them the pitch on why they should invest in French startups and in France?
I think you have two options. You move money or you move people. I think it's more easy to move money. Here, we have the people. And I want them to become the majority. My purpose is to have these entrepreneurs, these innovative people, to become the majority in this country. I don't want to see them as a silent minority, just obsessed by the fact they want to leave. That's not true. When you look, and my main argument will say, when precisely you go to San Francisco or Palo Alto, it's crazy to see how many French people you have. As engineers, investors, startups, and so on. But these people were here. They were trained here. And we can go a few meters from this place. I mean, not in les grands quartiers, but just, I mean, our main asset is these young people today, in what we call in France les banlieues. These young people, they have such an energy. They have such a willingness to succeed. They don't want to be helped by the government. They want to succeed by themselves. And that is people you find at 42, thanks to Xavier. So we have to help them. But here, you have the people. You have the energy. You have the good engineers. You have the infrastructure. But, I mean, if you decide to invest, we will help you. We will help you to create the new businesses these new disruptive businesses to go further.
And you still pay half of the engineers of a team. I know that if you invest here and you hire engineers, some of the team is actually the government helps, right? Decreasing the taxes.
Here you have different systems, what we call jeunes entreprises innovantes, and for young startups, basically, you have a lot of tax cuts, and you are almost subsidized by the governments during the first 5 years. And we are, honestly, one of the best in terms of comparison for these startups. And second, in terms of research and R&D, we have a very attractive instrument called the Crédit Impôt Recherche, which is a tax credit for all the R&D investments made in France. So when you look at these young startups, that's not that's the main explanation of this 2/3 of biotech listed coming from France. We have the instruments today. We have to promote them to better explain them. But these two specific schemes for young startups and for R&D in France are extremely attractive. And the point is that we are one of the best in class for these categories.
So Emmanuel, and then I'll turn it to Grainne again. But I want to answer your question. I'm trying to answer your question on what would make me come back to France. First, I didn't go out of France for tax reasons. California is in many ways more expensive than France, and especially if you add the health system or the college. I have 3 children, they will be all in college, $65,000 per year for 4 years. So you're talking $500,000 to $1 million college. Yeah, of course there are loans, there are helps if you, which I don't need, but it's extremely high. Then you have the health system, and I won't get into the details, but like you don't move to California for tax reasons. But to answer your question, here you have one thing which for me is very important is, and I'm actually going to disclose something to you, is as you know I supported Sarkozy for a few weeks. 8 years ago, which I'm still reminded all the time. But the reason why I did this, I will tell you why. Because if I was voting in the US, I would vote Democrat today, is that Sarkozy gave a talk which I still remember, was in Marseille, which was, I want a country of entrepreneurs. I want this country to be a country of entrepreneurs. And I was like, wow, that's great. And I published it on social media. And then they contacted me, and here we go, right? That's the only reason. And now I can tell you.
It is a French word,
yes,
entrepreneur.
It is a French word. But here is why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because when he won, then I asked, oh, so what's happening now? And I watched those, governments, and I'm not talking only about Sarkozy, all of them. And apart from the promises, I don't really see things happening and changing. That's my feeling. My feeling is it's a lot of promises, and I think a lot of my friends, entrepreneurs, kind of feel the same, that we don't really see it changing. Whether it's the left or the right, doesn't matter. And that I'm very sad. And I see Xavier Niel doing this, I'm impressed. You should make him a hero, like the British government is making Richard Branson a hero. And I think that would be one thing you could do. Another thing is that's controversial, but teach English much, much more so that the French startups are much more international. Yeah, I would make it something really, really important, because the problem is they start with, same in Germany, they start in German, they start in French. But this is not my interview, I should stop. And the other thing, maybe a tip, since I have you in front of me, I would have them code as soon as possible in École Primaire, learn coding.
It's part of the program and what we're doing. But
I didn't know. Awesome.
No, I'm not campaigning. I'm acting. So let's assess the results. You were ready to help Sarkozy. Help us. We are acting. We are transforming the country here, now. It's not about promises. We have to change the country now.
Happy to.
The law I'm trying to pass goes to the direction is to change the country. But it's to make a cultural revolution. So what we need is to have people with energy, with willingness, precisely, to help, to invest, to create new jobs, to try, to take risk. I'm taking risk today. I'm taking risk. So I'm not campaigning.
No,
I'm
you're in charge.
Yeah. So please, if you have ideas, if you have requests, tell them.
Okay. We will.
And help us. Help us.
Okay, so you want to know, Grainne, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I need to.
I have to. Vent.
One more, I have to. One other thing, entrepreneurs, when they leave, what they talk about is, we touch it a little bit, flexibility of law. Like, if a startup is in trouble, it happened to me, if you fire in France, you go to Prud'homme. If you have to let go employees, you go to Prud'homme. If you let go employees in California and Silicon Valley, they tell you, thank you for the opportunity. Seriously, I know it sounds like a joke. I had employees I had to let go because we were not doing well, and they thanked me. They asked you for a LinkedIn recommendation, and then 6 months after, they are a startup themselves. Total change of way you think. And then as far as successful entrepreneurs are, I have to tell you some things. When I was here, I got like so many, control fiscal. I had, for 1 year, someone half part-time on me, just to check, because you're the bad guy if you're an entrepreneur. You're like, we bought a copy machine to answer Bercy. It's just, and everything was fine, by the way. But, I mean, I don't want to live in a country where I have to have a control fiscal every year. And you know what? My wealthy friends here, successful, they have that. Every year, it's such a pain. It's terrible. The wealth tax that I have to tell you how much is this watch every year? Really? I don't want to live here for that reason. I'm just pushing it a little. But you see, it's a question of spirit.
No.
I have a right to succeed and make some money, and I don't want to be checked all the time.
I think first, to make your life more easy on the labor market side is what we are working on. Because I think that's in everybody's interest to change that. The reform of the prud'homme we are making, the contrat de mission, which still exists, and we have to promote that. You have a series of very precise measures. But when you speak about cultural stuff, you don't change, culture overnight. My conviction is that the French culture is precisely about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneur is a French word. Never forget that. Entrepreneur is a French word. And I'm proud about that. And I think that you have progressively to transform the country and to promote precisely risk takers, innovative people. And the more you help them, the more you recognize them, the more you change the speech, the more they become the majority. And I'm serious about when I say that, to help us, to create a new collective social and economic majority. Because you have such a concentration of entrepreneurs in San Francisco, it's what you mentioned, that indeed the state of mind is not the same. It's not the same because you have such a concentration, and the mood is not the same. So it's not the case here. It's pretty gloomy, you know that. People are skeptical, people are always afraid, and people are always extremely nervous about the future. I think we have to help them to take more risk and to have a majority of risk takers, of innovators. And when you have such a situation, I can tell you that we can change a lot of things. In terms of controls and the behavior of the tax administration and so on.
And the wealth tax.
Sorry?
And the wealth tax.
Yeah, no. I agree about the situation. That's a matter of fact, and we have to work about that and to conciliate, fair and equal treatment, and to be more pragmatic.
Well, it's more
business friendly, because at the end of the day,
you might consider the entrepreneurs are honest.
It's a lose-lose approach.
They're honest, and they're not like
I agree
bad
with
guys.
you that we have. I agree. It's a matter. I don't know how to change it right now, but we have to explain. We probably have to progressively change. But even when you compare, indeed, London and Paris on this point, that's today a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, I think you spoke about it yesterday when you were presenting your law. I think you talked about 3 different things that were holding back France. And I think my impression is you're essentially trying to déclic, unlock French potential. But I think the 3 things you mentioned, and excuse me if I'm not translating them properly, were mistrust, if I could translate it that way, complexity, and the third one is corporatisme en français. We were trying to translate it properly in English to something like clubbiness. That's how we put it in the Wall Street Journal today anyway. So it seems to me that this is very related to the conversation you're having with Loic, because you speak about French bashing, and I know myself, and not me personally, but the Anglo-Saxon press, we get a lot of shtick for that. And I think, in fairness, that is not our MO. I live here, my husband's French, my children are half French, so it's not in my interest to bash France, but it strikes me that it's part of the French psyche to bash France. It's not so much French bashing from externally, it's French bashing internally. So how do you, it's like turning an oil tanker, trying to change that.
Fine, but you have to do so. So that's not the reason. Probably it's difficult. We are experiencing hard times. But that's a necessity. And I do think that you have a lot of objective reason to succeed in this country. A lot of objective reason. You have a lot of energy. You have a lot of potentiality. But mistrust, complexity, and indeed lobbying, and the fact that today political and economic insiders capture the country. They are those who speak to the mic, and they don't want, basically, the big change. But for me, being Minister of Economy in this country today is working for outsiders and innovators, is working for jobs which are not yet created. It's working for young people who want to work. It's creating the new large caps which today don't exist. That's the key point.
Okay, we'll take
I'd like to, can I just switch gears one time before we open up to the floor?
Yeah.
Because I do want to ask you about Uber. And if I could just broaden it a little bit, because you know, it seems to me, and we're writing about this a lot these days, and it seems like it's going to be a big theme in the coming year, that there's some sort of a digital war going on between European governments, and not just in Europe, but we're writing about a lot from European perspective, and what I will call tech superpowers. I'm thinking of the big US tech companies. And it seems like there's something new that's popping up every day, be it the European Parliament voting in favor of a breakup of Google, or Amazon, Luxembourg, or obviously tax is playing a role here. But I think there seems to be a perception among many in Europe that the tech industry has become so big and so influential, and that it's operating sort of beyond the reach of what you could call maybe 20th century regulations for a 21st century world. So I'm just curious for your point of view on how you see that playing out in the next year or so, the balance of power. And the second question really is about Uber, specifically, because Uber appears to be operating in a different world even to all of that. And, we've seen a lot of stuff this week, Uber getting banned sort of left, right, and center in various different parts of the world. There is a prominent court case underway in France. The decision, I believe, is due tomorrow. Should Uber be allowed to have drivers in Paris without professional licenses picking up passengers? What is your point of view specifically on Uber?
On the first point, I think it's not, we should probably separate the Google issue, the GAFA issue, and the rest of the tech industry. Because,
sure.
This is very different. And for me, promoting the tech industry, and especially the European one, is having a fair competition.
No, but I'd like your point of view more on the GAFA.
But my point was, what we have to promote is a fair competition. And as long as you have the evidence that one of the big guys basically is blocking the others or killing the others thanks to an existing advantage, they are becoming insiders. It's not just about innovation. It's just because they are killing competition thanks to the existing advantage. So that's why I do believe, and I was very sensitive to Axel Springer's CEO's argument, and we had a lot of our startups and German startups pushing this case at the European level. I think that's an important discussion. Right. Not because it's against somebody or against Google or whoever. It's because what is the further competition in this market? And how basically to allow people to create new businesses and not to be killed day one by the big guy. And I think, it's always the same state of mind. How to promote innovation and to help the newcomers. Yeah. So I think it's very consistent, and we have to be extremely straightforward and cautious with this situation, because I'm a little bit, I have to say, skeptical when I see some statements coming from these people, the GAFA people, because sometimes they are living themselves as a sort of government, a quasi-government. At the end of the day, we are part of a community. You can choose your nationality, you can choose your country, and so on. But you have duties as well. You live somewhere. And it's not because of the digital world that you can think that you will live in an island without paying any tax and living, apart from the world. I think that's a moral issue and a philosophical issue. But I do think they're wrong. and we can debate. But so I don't think that we have just to aggregate in a certain way the GAFA issue and the rest of the tech industry. The interest of the tech industry is precisely to have more innovation, to go faster, and to help the newcomers. So that's consistent. On Uber...
Are you going to make it, is it going to be banned in France?
No. No, I think that Paris should be the second market of Uber in Europe, huh? Yeah. When you look at the figures.
But so what's at play here is Uber Pop.
Always be careful about the existing ideas. Berlin forgotten Uber. In Spain, they are forgotten. Not in France. Not in France. One of the specific offers was blocked.
The cab drivers. What do you tell the cab drivers?
So I think
who have a medallion, I don't know how you call it here, will lose.
No, but because you have to find the right balance between, open this market and have them operating, and they operate here. As I was telling you, Uber is a reality in Paris. That's the second market in Europe, but you have to protect people in them. It doesn't make sense to have a crazy driver without any license, because today you will have an issue. So they have to be sensible as well, and to consider that you have to be innovative, you have to create new jobs, you have to be disruptive. But when you speak about driving people, you have to guarantee perfect security.
You have to have a
buy a license?
No, it's not about buying a license. It's to be sure that you have the right level of qualification in order to provide the best possible level in terms of security. That's a key issue. That's a key point. So after that, you had a series of long debates between Uber and the other startups in the sector and the taxi driver here. And I think that this debate was not reflecting the reality. For me, these new startups, if they guarantee the right level of security, are part of this economy. And if they allow to hire people with the right level of qualification, and when they can provide security, but if they can help to hire young people, it's fine. It's good.
Emmanuel, unfortunately, and I know you're very busy, so we are coming out of time. I don't think we'll take any questions from the room, which I really wanted to. But I will help you if you want me to help. I'll be happy to help. But that's my kind of final question for me as a French citizen for the room. How can we help? Let us know how can we help, since you're not...
The point, and it's valid for all of you, provide ideas. Tell me concretely how we can help. And send an email, and in order just to say what should be done. How it could be more easy, basically, to hire very concretely. I don't want big ideas. We can have big debates. We are at the technological frontier in this country to speak about the 35 hours and, big stuff to say we will create a big revolution with a specific measures. It doesn't true. The big revolution is a series of specific and precise measures to help people, and it's to create a culture. How to better organize ourselves to promote innovation, and which specific point we can precisely change.
So we will, what email address?
Emmanuel Macron 3 at gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, I wasn't planning to do this. We're really late. Really quick, please. Really quick.
You mentioned a revolution. The Chinese revolution was started by one sentence by a Chinese, a bit bloody leader. It was Chinese get rich. So I'd like you to say, Frenchmen get rich. That's a revolution.
You know that in this country, that's a 19th century sentence.
Yeah, that's fine. Just say it. Frenchmen get rich.
Frenchmen succeed and get rich.
Yes, thank you.
Emmanuel, thank you so much. And we wish you the best. I suggest you come back next year.
Sure.
And we see what changed in 12 months.
To assess precisely.
Careful.
To see the results.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Paul, the floor is yours.